This video I'm going to go over how to replace a old ceiling fan, or you could have a light there and you're trying to install a ceiling fan. It's basically the same process. As soon as you get the old light or fan out, start installing the new one. Most of them come with directions, so make sure you follow the directions, but I've replaced many over the years, so I probably have some tips and some shortcuts and pointers or whatever. So if you want to follow along, you've never done one before, kind of see how it works, just check this out. So I'm just using my little voltage tester. So it's green to show you it's on, and then it turns red and makes that beep when it's present. All right, so I went and found the breaker. I hit the button on accident there. It's dead there. It's dead in this switch, and just to make sure this is working still. All right, so my LED, it definitely has power still, so I know the sensor's working. So I just want to test it to a known good source. Alright, so I just removed the old fan arm from out of the holder. Most fans have some kind of holder like this. It allows you to slide the fan and hold it in place while you wire it. But you can kind of see how the mount was loose. These screws have come loose. So the fan did have a bad wobble. So you might think, oh, my fan shot, it's wobbling, I need a new one. It could be just a loose mount. So something to check. But that was an old outdated fan. I'm putting a new one in. Either way. So I'm going to take these two screws out and pull this mount down, and then we'll open up the new fan. So quick tip that I do before I even start my fan install. You want this box to be secure, otherwise your fan's going to wobble no matter what. So if the electrical box in your ceiling isn't mounted you know, to the wood and framing up there properly, your fan's gonna wobble. So all I did was put the screws back in, and I want to see zero play, and this thing does not move, so it's good. So here's what your average ceiling fan drop rod mount looks like from the old fan. Since this is a flush metal light without a drop rod, it has a different style mount, but I actually like it because it looks pretty easy to install. The directions aren't great. They tell you to mount this up and then try to fish wires through that center hole there. I'm going to fish the wires through first. Trust me, it's going to be easier. But I do like that on this design. I don't know that I've seen this before. Get on my step stool real quick. So you go ahead and put the screws in, and then slide the mount onto the screws. So it holds itself in place while you work, instead of having to like hold it up with one hand, get a screw started like the drop hangers need. So that's actually kind of cool. So like I said, I'm gonna fish all the wires through the center, and then I will go ahead and mount this plate up. The bracket is tightened down. I put that little washer in. I needed it on one side, didn't need a wash on the other side, but bracket is tightened. The next thing I'm doing is actually putting the motor on. Again, it doesn't have the rod holder, but it has a hook and a little spot on the motor to hold it. So I'm just going to put the motor on the hook, and now the motor is hanging fully supported, so we can come over here and do the wiring. So makes it easy. All right, so a couple tips for the wiring. One, I always like to wire the ground up first for safety. So I have a ground coming from my metal electrical box that I fish through. I have a ground for my fan plate, and I have a ground for my motor plate. I'm just going to take all three of these green wires and wire nut them together, and then my grounds will be done. Once grounds are done, again, this one's labeled. They're not always labeled, but blue is light, black is motor, and white is your neutral. And then you have your power, your hot in your house is, your black is your hot and your white is your neutral. So in this case, like I was talking about earlier, I don't have a traveler or second power wire to control the fan and light separately. So in this case, the blue and black is going to go to my black, my hot, and then white to white on my neutrals, and this wiring will be done. Another little tip, don't reuse wire nuts. I know it can be tempting, so I'm going to take an old one off here. They may look like they're in great shape. I mean, this wire nut could have been in the ceiling for 20, 30 years or longer, as long as the fan's been here. I'm pretty sure this fan was from 1990, so it's pretty old. The plastic can become brittle. The metal inside from being used can strain or strip. You want these connections to be tight. Wire nuts are cheap, so always just put a new wire nut on. Make sure you have a tight connection when doing these. And other than that, wiring is pretty much a cinch. Alright, here's a close-up of the wiring I just did. So my 3 grounds went together from the electrical box, the mounting plate, and the fan. The neutral from the house is going to the white neutral on the fan motor, and the fan motor and light blue and black wires are going to the hot black wire from the house. Wire nuts are pretty straightforward. A couple tips for them if you've never used them before. Before you put the wire nut on, make sure the wires are the same length. Even with each other. Start twisting it on, and when the wires start twisting on themselves, I like to do a couple twists just to hold it together better. So you can see how my wire started twisting when it's fully tight. Give it a little tug, make sure it's tight. You want all these connections good. Not really necessary, but just personally, I also like to point my wire nuts either up or sideways, but never down. That way, if your roof leaks, you have a bathroom above you, or water pipe leak, anything, moisture, if it runs down these wires and the wire nuts face down, it can collect water. It can become a problem. So I always like to just, when I push all the wiring back up, I either like to, if it's up in the box, I just point them straight up. So if water runs down the wiring, it can't come back up into the wire nut and hit the bare wire. Alright, so fan motor is attached. I tightened those 4 screws again. Not super happy about that whole process because of those washers. It was kind of a pain. But it wasn't bad. I'm just being picky. I do like the shroud or guard, the way it attaches. It's got hidden hardware on the inside, so it's got these 4 screws, and then you can see there's 4 key slots around the top. So it just basically slides in and twists and locks in place, which I like. A lot of these will have like extra tiny little screw hardware on the outside that you have to put in, and then after that there's like another ring that slides over that to hide the screws. So I like the way this was designed. So let's get this installed real quick. I'm gonna need both hands, so set the camera back down. All right, housing or shroud is on. Another thing I really like that I didn't realize at first, so those keyholes in the bracket are tapered. They're not flush with the ceiling, they go up. So as I twisted the ring, it actually drew the whole thing close to the ceiling. So I have a nice flush shroud, because I've installed a lot of fans where, you know, the drywall and the ceiling's not perfectly level, the box might be off a degree, the electrical box, so your shroud always has a gap. But with this design, it's self-leveling, so I just kept twisting it until it was flush with the ceiling and then stopped. And it is on there and flush. So thumbs up for me. I really like that that design part. Alright, so another thing I'm going to do before I go any further, since all the wiring is done and the shroud's on, it's all closed up other than installing the light part. I went ahead and flipped the breaker back on. I'm going to flip the switch. Fan is spinning. It's not arcing or sparking. It's not shaking. Breaker didn't trip back off. So just make sure your wiring's good. do it now when it's still easy to get back in and check it or fix it before you put all the fan blades and light on, and then you have to disassemble the whole thing. Ask me how I know. Pro tip. Alright, all of the arms are screwed. There were 3 screws with little fiber washers. All of them are assembled. Now I'm gonna install them in the fan. If you have an extra set of hands, that's great. Otherwise, it's a lot of climbing down and off the stool. But go ahead and show you one. It's pretty straightforward. This stuff has gotten a lot easier than it used to be. But there's 2 spots that each screw goes into. Get one in. Drop the screw, of course. That's why not. Alright, go ahead and get all of them in. Alright, we are done. Almost. Got to do the light for just installing the fan. And you can buy fans without light kits and then put light kits in later. But they come with a little vanity plate when the light kit's not installed. So if you were just installing a fan and maybe doing some can or other lights in your room, that is what the fan would look like without it. So it looks like there's 4 screws holding this little plate on. Go ahead and pull that plate off and we'll get the light installed. Alright, so again, shut your power back off. And pretty straightforward. I had 2 wires that were in a bag and zip tied up. And I got 2 wires on my light receptacle. So I'm going to go white to white and black to blue. Sometimes it's blue down here too. Yeah. White to white, black to blue. Quick connectors, they're keyed. Just shove them in. I'm going to put the box in and put the screws back in. Again, these are actually keyed and swapped male to female, so you couldn't accidentally put them in wrong. This is a nice little extra there. Alright, let's get it screwed in. Using the same screws I took out. Get it started by hand first, that's going to be easier. Bunch all the wires back up. Make sure they're not going to get pinched. Pretty straightforward. Line up the screw holes. So I got one started by hand. I'm going to get all 3 started by hand and then screw them in with the drill. And then move on to the bulbs and globes. Alright. So the light fixture's in. I just got to get all these globes in. They use thumb screws. So no screwdriver or drill. So 3 thumb screws on each. Go ahead and get all 3 of these in. And then do the bulbs and we'll be done. Alright, we're done. Bulbs are in again. I think a 3-pack of LED bulbs like this is like $8 to $10, so it's a really good value when these fans or light fixtures come with these LED bulbs. So only 9 watt replaces a 60 watt 800 lumens. A really long life compared to an incandescent. Saves money. Cool to the touch, they don't make heat. So I love these LED bulbs. So we're done. Let's turn the switch back on. Woo! Way brighter. My drop light's not doing any. Doesn't hold a candle to that. That's gonna work out much better for this little room. So there we go. Done with the installation of the ceiling fan and light. Hope you found it helpful. And we can move on to finishing up the renovation in my son's room. Thanks for watching. Bye.